The halls of the imperial palace stretch endlessly, carved from living stone and bathed in a golden light that seems to pulse with a heartbeat older than humanity itself. Here on Terra, the air tastes faintly of incense and molten metal, and the weight of eternity presses against the shoulders of all who dare enter. Few know the path that leads to these hallowed chambers, fewer still the trials that await those who aspire to stand among the Emperor's closest protectors. To be chosen is not a reward, but a summons to a life of isolation, relentless discipline, and sacrifice beyond imagining. Every step echoes with centuries of duty. Every breath is a prayer, a silent acknowledgement of the fragile impermanence of the human form before the immovable will of the God Emperor. This is not the story of glory, but of the unseen crucible that forges the living embodiment of Terra's ultimate guardianship. Before we descend into the shadows and steel of the Custodes world, consider this. If you feel compelled to witness the lives of those who stand where few dare, support the journey. Like, share, and subscribe, and let the light of the Astronomicon guide us together through corridors where every whisper carries weight. The first sign that the world beyond the manufactorums might notice you is never obvious. In the deep, humming corridors of the training academies, where molten metal flows like rivers of fire and the scent of ozone clings to the walls, the children, though they are no longer children in the eyes of their superiors, move silently, observing one another with guarded curiosity. Each heartbeat seems amplified in these halls, a rhythm measured and scrutinized by unseen eyes. Teachers, mentors, and auditors walk past with faces carved from stone, expressionless masks concealing decades, sometimes centuries, of service to the Imperium. Their gaze is more than supervision. It is an examination, a weighing of worth against standards that are invisible, unyielding, and eternal. Those who aspire to join the Adeptus Custodes are selected not for fame, not for glory, but for the faint, almost imperceptible traits that mark them as capable of carrying the Emperor's presence in their flesh and mind. Genetic markers, neurological resilience, and a discipline beyond comprehension are the first gates. Some are discovered in the remotest spires of the Administratum, or among the lowest ranks of the Schola Progenium. Others in the manufactorums where servitors toil and young recruits learn to endure the ceaseless heat and deafening clamor of industrial life. Rumors swirl in hushed whispers about candidates who disappear without record, taken into the shadows of the palace to face trials that the universe itself seems to forget. Their absence is a warning. Survival depends on far more than ambition or courage. Every day, aspirants face examinations that blur the line between punishment and revelation. They are pushed to exhaustion in combat simulations where every blade strike, every misstep, every breath is monitored by data slates and scrutinized by instructors whose loyalty is absolute and whose judgment is unerring. The exercises are designed to erode pride, strip away the frivolous attachments of youth, and reveal the core of obedience and devotion. A young candidate may awaken from sleep with the taste of promethium smoke still in their mouth, muscles screaming, eyes burning from the glare of artificial suns, only to be marched into yet another trial. Those who fail, even subtly, vanish quietly. No announcement, no ceremony, only the silence that follows absence. Yet in these halls of pressure and expectation, there are small sparks of wonder that sustain those who endure. The first glimmer of dawn reflected in polished armor, the resonance of an echoing vox grill as it carries the anthem of the Emperor through the corridors, the meticulous hum of a servitor performing its endless labors. These fragments of life remind the aspirants that they are being shaped not just for survival, but for the ultimate purpose, the protection of Terra itself. Every day, the recruits sense the vast weight of history pressing down on their shoulders, a lineage older than most civilizations, and they understand instinctively that failure is not merely personal, it is sacrilege. Conversations are rare, and when they occur, they are measured, cautious. Aspirants speak in muted tones, careful to avoid the attention of those who might judge thoughts as well as actions. Bonds form quickly and break just as fast. Friendships can be dangerous, attachments fatal. The Custodes require not only physical perfection but emotional equilibrium, the ability to feel without allowing sentiment to override duty. And yet, even in this crucible, glimpses of the human spirit flare briefly, defiant, fragile, beautiful in its persistence. It is these sparks that the auditors watch most closely, for they must determine whether the flame will survive the trials ahead or be snuffed out by the cold, golden gaze of the Emperor's servants. As the first wave of aspirants is assessed, a pattern emerges. Those who endure are neither the strongest nor the fastest in conventional terms. They are the ones whose hearts do not falter under relentless scrutiny, whose minds bend without breaking, whose loyalty is not taught but felt in the marrow of their bones. The selection is a whisper at first, a subtle indication that the universe has noticed them. Then it becomes a summons, delivered in the quietest of ways, a single insignia, a cryptic instruction, a data slate blinking with a summons to appear in a place where few dare tread. To accept is to step into a current that carries no return, a flow that will shape flesh, mind, and soul. And so the aspirants wait, poised at the edge of oblivion and revelation. Each knows that even a single misstep can erase decades of preparation, that the Emperor's gaze may fall and judge with unerring precision. They feel, in those long hours of anticipation, the weight of centuries pressing upon their shoulders, and some whisper silent prayers, hoping their bodies and spirits will be deemed worthy to stand in the shadow of eternity. The first selection has begun, and the palace corridors tremble faintly under the echo of choices that will shape the future of the Imperium itself. The summons arrives in ways that feel almost supernatural, as if the palace itself is reaching out to claim those it has noticed. For some, it is a simple instruction etched into a data slate, a time, a location, and a single phrase, "The Emperor wills it." For others, it is a more intimate calling, a figure in the shadows, robed and silent, observing every heartbeat, every breath, until the aspirant cannot tell whether they are being guided or hunted. Those who respond feel an immediate shift in the air. Corridors seem longer, echoes sharper, and the scent of incense heavier, as if every molecule carries the weight of expectation. Even before they set foot in the outer courtyards of the palace, they know that nothing familiar will remain. When the aspirants enter the outer halls, they are struck first by the silence. Not the absence of sound, but a different kind of resonance, a vibration that thrums through the floor, through the walls, and into their very bones. The golden light that bathes the palace is not comforting, it is absolute. Shadows cling to the edges of vision, and each reflection in polished brass or obsidian seems to study the intruders, questioning their worth. The air tastes metallic, like a storm yet to break, and each breath is a reminder that life itself is fragile in the presence of eternity. Many of the young aspirants falter here, their knees shaking, their minds scrambling to reconcile ambition with the gravity of what they have entered. Those who do not falter do so not because they are fearless, but because they understand instinctively that fear alone cannot unseat destiny. The first trials within the palace are designed to illuminate the candidates' inner selves. They are tested not with weapons alone, but with scrutiny that pierces thought and soul. Memory tests that replay childhood traumas, challenges that provoke anger, doubt, and despair, all while sensors and devices record every micro-expression, every heartbeat variance. It is a crucible of perception. Some aspirants break under the weight of observation, their thoughts scattering like ashes before the wind. Others endure, their minds honing into clarity, filtering distractions and focusing solely on obedience, precision, and unflinching loyalty. Observers note the difference between resilience born of pride and resilience born of comprehension. Only the latter can survive what lies ahead. Physical trials follow, though even these are unlike anything encountered in the academies or manufactorums. Aspirants are pushed through corridors lined with molten conduits, forced to navigate terrain designed to sap strength and spirit alike. Automated combat drones test reactions and strategy, striking with unerring precision, leaving no room for error. Pain is immediate and uncompromising, yet it is also a teacher. Each bruise, each scar, each moment of exhaustion is a lesson in endurance and the transcendence of fear. The Custodes do not merely want warriors, they seek vessels in which loyalty and purpose have fused with flesh, a synthesis of mind, body, and devotion that approaches perfection. Yet, beyond the physical and mental trials, it is the subtle tests that weigh heaviest. Aspirants are observed in moments of silence, in their solitude, when no instructor is nearby but the architecture itself seems to watch. How does one move through a corridor unguarded by eyes yet saturated with surveillance? How does one respond when the faint hum of the palace seems to whisper possibilities and threats simultaneously? The Custodes have long learned that the measure of a candidate is not their ability to act when watched, but when they are convinced that no one sees. Those who cheat themselves, who hesitate or grasp at ego, are quietly removed from the path, leaving only a whisper in the minds of those who remain. A warning, a promise, a shadow of what it means to be chosen. By the time the first selection concludes, only a handful of aspirants remain. They stand trembling, yet resolute, at the edge of the inner sanctums, feeling for the first time the weight of what has been asked of them. They have survived tests that would have broken ordinary mortals, yet survival is not triumph. It is merely the confirmation that the path to the Custodes is open, and that the next stage will demand more than body or mind. It will demand the surrender of all that makes them human, in service to a duty eternal and absolute. And in that knowledge, they feel both fear and awe, the inseparable companions of anyone who dares to approach the shadow of the Emperor. The inner sanctums are a revelation, though not in the ways the aspirants anticipate. They are not filled with riches or ornate displays. Instead, they are spaces of impossible scale, carved from living stone and adorned with inscriptions that stretch beyond comprehension. Every surface pulses faintly with a golden radiance, as if the very walls are alive with memory and purpose. The aspirants move as though in a dream, footsteps echoing in measured cadence, aware that they are intruders in a domain older than most human civilizations. Here, the air tastes faintly of ozone and resin, and a low, almost inaudible hum vibrates through the floors and columns. It is the first taste of the palace's true power, a power that commands reverence and imposes a vigilance that no mortal has ever known. In these halls, the candidates are stripped of the last vestiges of pretense. They are reminded, with quiet severity, that the Custodes do not tolerate weakness or indulgence. One misstep in thought, one faltering display of hesitation, and the palace itself seems to claim its due. Yet, even as the aspirants tremble under invisible scrutiny, there is a strange clarity that descends upon them. The weight of eternity does not crush, it illuminates. Every fear, every doubt, every question of worth is distilled into a single, piercing truth. Survival is not the goal. Obedience and understanding are. The Custodes are not chosen for what they achieve, but for what they surrender, and the aspirants are beginning to understand the first contours of that surrender. It is here, in the silent corridors where shadows seem to linger deliberately and the hum of the palace carries both promise and threat, that the final phase of selection begins. The aspirants are tested not with weapons or simulations, but with observation so subtle it borders on metaphysical. How does one carry oneself when every motion is under scrutiny? When every heartbeat and breath is counted as a measure of potential? They are forced to confront themselves in the purest sense, to face not rivals or instructors, but their own limitations. The whispers of doubt, the gnawing fear of failure, the instinct to cling to the familiar, all are present and insistent. Those who falter vanish quietly, leaving only an empty corridor and the faint echo of choices unmade. By the conclusion of these trials, only the most remarkable aspirants remain. They are silent, not out of fear, but out of comprehension. They know they have been observed by something beyond ordinary authority, by something that weighs eternity in a single glance. Their bodies bear the marks of the crucible, but it is the mind and spirit that have been forged. They understand, in a way that transcends words, that the path ahead is not measured in years or days, but in devotion. The summons that brought them to these halls was merely the opening act. The true trial is only beginning, and it will demand more than endurance. It will demand transformation. As the surviving aspirants stand at the threshold of the inner palace, a strange mixture of awe and dread settles over them. The corridors stretch endlessly, bathed in gold and shadow, and the faint hum of the palace seems to whisper of responsibilities that exceed human comprehension. They sense, though cannot fully grasp, that the Emperor's gaze, indirect, mysterious, absolute, rests upon them. Here, at the edge of their former lives, they are poised to step into the Custodes' world, a realm of silence, sacrifice, and vigilance unbroken by time. The whisper of selection has become a summons, the echo of eternity pressing against their bones. And so the aspirants wait, poised between mortality and destiny, each heartbeat a prayer, each breath a vow. The path to the Adeptus Custodes is open, but it is a path lined with shadows and tempered by fire. Beyond this point, there is no return, only the forging of flesh and mind into instruments of the Emperor's will. The whisper has ended, but the journey, the true crucible, has only just begun. The palace does not forgive hesitation. Those who have survived the whisper of selection step into a world where every breath, every motion, every thought is a test of endurance beyond imagination. The halls are alive with a subtle rhythm, the heartbeat of the Emperor's vigilance, and aspirants quickly learn that even the most ordinary corridor can become a theater of revelation. Here, the air carries the sharp tang of promethium, mingled with incense and the faint, metallic scent of long-forged armor. Each step echoes against polished stone, as if to remind the aspirants that the world outside these walls has little meaning in comparison to the weight pressing upon them now. The first days of the crucible are deceptively simple. Recruits are awakened before the sun touches the palace spires, roused by the hum of machinery and the soft clatter of servitors performing endless rituals of preparation. Food is minimal and functional, designed to sustain but not comfort, and sleep is fragmented, measured in increments that deny the mind the luxury of dreaming. Every movement is observed. Every hesitation is catalogued. Aspirants are pushed through drills that test reflexes, strength, and stamina, yet it is the unseen trials, the mental strain, the constant psychological pressure, that shape them most profoundly. Even the bravest stumble when confronted with the invisible architecture of vigilance. Combat simulations are relentless. Drones with preternatural accuracy strike with surgical precision, testing not only skill but composure under stress. Aspirants learn to anticipate attacks, not as a measure of survival instinct, but as proof of their ability to meld thought and action into a single, unwavering rhythm. Pain is not punishment, it is enlightenment. Each strike teaches restraint and precision. Each moment of fatigue becomes a lesson in endurance. Here, strength is less important than adaptability, less important than the capacity to endure the unending calculus of risk, observation, and duty. Many break. Those who endure do so by surrendering ego entirely, allowing the training to reshape them as if they were clay in the hands of a master sculptor. Isolation is another trial, subtle and insidious. Recruits are often removed from the company of their peers, placed in silent chambers where the walls themselves seem to close in. Time loses meaning, minutes stretch into hours, hours into days. The mind, untethered from distraction, turns inward, confronting memories long buried, doubts unspoken, fears unnamed. It is in these chambers that the aspirants confront the parts of themselves they never knew existed. The selfish impulses, the moments of hesitation, the faint but persistent yearning for comfort and recognition. Only those capable of quieting these impulses emerge unchanged, their wills strengthened, their sense of duty absolute. Every trial is interwoven with ritual. The custodes are as much keepers of tradition as they are warriors, and even the most grueling tests are framed by the weight of history. Aspirants learn to recite prayers in perfect cadence, to move with grace and purpose even when exhaustion threatens to consume them, to synchronize with the hum of the palace itself. The smallest misstep is noted, each imperfection catalogued for the instructors who measure not only skill but the potential for ultimate loyalty. Some moments pass unnoticed by the untrained eye, yet they are the fulcrum upon which survival pivots. A glance too long at a shadow, a hesitation in the placement of a foot, a tremor in the hand, all speak volumes to those who watch with unerring patience. By the end of the first cycle of trials, the aspirants are no longer the same. Flesh aches, minds reel under the weight of observation, and yet there is a strange clarity that threads through the chaos. Pain and exhaustion have become tools rather than enemies, and discipline is no longer external but internalized. The body bends without breaking, the mind sharpens under pressure, and the heart learns to measure loyalty above all else. They are beginning to understand what it means to stand in service of the Emperor, not as a soldier, not as a servant, but as a living instrument of his will, crafted to endure where ordinary humanity would crumble. And yet, even as they learn, the crucible offers no mercy. Each day carries the reminder that survival is not reward, but prerequisite. Every trainee understands that the path ahead demands more than endurance, more than skill. It demands transformation, an unyielding reformation of flesh, mind, and spirit, forged in the fire of discipline, tempered by observation, and sharpened by the quiet insistence of a power older than the stars themselves. As the days stretch into cycles, the trials grow in intensity and subtlety. Combat is no longer only against drones or artificial constructs. The aspirants begin to spar with one another under conditions designed to erode ego and foster precision. Each clash of weapons is a lesson in timing, in restraint, in the cold calculus of action dictated by duty rather than desire. Pain, once sharp and chaotic, becomes a guide, shaping movement and thought. A bruise is no longer a mark of injury but a signal, a language the body and mind learn to read. Some aspirants panic under the pressure, lashing out, letting emotion dictate motion. Others bend, adapt, and move in perfect synchrony with the rhythm of battle, their bodies becoming extensions of a will greater than their own. It is here that instructors observe most keenly, for they can discern the difference between instinctive survival and the dawning comprehension of loyalty absolute. Sleep deprivation is layered atop the physical strain, a relentless test of mental acuity. Aspirants are forced to navigate corridors and perform complex exercises with hours of near-continuous wakefulness, each step measured, each decision scrutinized. Shadows appear to stretch unnaturally in the golden halls, and the hum of the palace grows oppressive, as if the walls themselves are aware of every hesitation and doubt. Many falter here, not because of fatigue alone, but because isolation amplifies fear, magnifies uncertainty, and tests the resolve to maintain purpose when the world itself seems designed to unmake them. Those who endure discover an inner rhythm, a cadence that allows thought, motion, and perception to align even in exhaustion, a nascent reflection of the discipline that defines the custodes. Meditation becomes as essential as movement. Aspirants are instructed to center themselves, to attune to the subtle vibrations of the palace, to listen to the resonance of their own hearts and the quiet pulse of something vast and unknowable. Some perceive whispers of the emperor's will in these moments, though whether these are divine truths or the mind's fragile imagination is a question that cannot be answered. These sessions reveal the pliability of thought, the capacity for self-discipline, and the necessity of controlling even the most fleeting impulses. The mind, as much as the body, is tested for endurance, clarity, and loyalty. Every aspirant discovers limits they did not know they had. Muscles ache until motion is agony, vision blurs from sleeplessness, and the pulse of the palace seems to beat against their skulls. Yet each challenge, each trial, is a crucible refining them into something beyond ordinary humanity. The faintest spark of hesitation, the smallest indulgence in doubt or pride, is a mark of weakness that could prove fatal later. Through relentless repetition, the body bends without breaking, and the mind learns to act without hesitation, to obey without question, to feel only the purpose of service. The crucible strips away distraction, leaving the essence of loyalty and endurance as its only residue. In moments of rare reprieve, aspirants glimpse the broader purpose of their trials. From high balconies or observation galleries, they see the endless spires of the palace stretching into the clouds, hear the distant rumble of manufactorums that never cease, and sense the fragile, endless motion of the Imperium itself. Each view reminds them that their struggle is not for personal honor, but for the survival of humanity, for the continuity of a civilization that teeters perpetually on the edge of annihilation. Understanding this does not lessen the pain, it sharpens it, imbuing every trial with urgency and gravitas. By the end of these early cycles, a transformation becomes visible. The aspirants move with precision, think with clarity, and endure with a quiet, unsettling calm. The crucible has begun to shape them, but it is not yet complete. What remains is the forging of mind into instrument, the tempering of flesh into vessel, and the relentless refining of the will until it aligns entirely with the purpose of guarding Terra and the Emperor. They have survived the first storms, but the true fury of the Custodes' training lies still ahead, waiting to test not only their strength, but the very essence of who they are. The next phase of the crucible demands more than physical or mental endurance. It demands the surrender of self. Aspirants are pushed into scenarios designed to strip individuality from their actions, to fuse thought, body, and spirit into instruments of absolute obedience. They are placed in combat situations where success requires anticipating not only their opponent's moves, but the silent intent of the instructors who watch from shadowed galleries. Every gesture, every microsecond decision is measured. Even the slightest hesitation, a twitch of a finger, a falter in stance, can result in failure. And yet, the pain and discipline, the exhaustion and endless repetition, cultivate a kind of clarity. Those who endure begin to feel their minds sharpen into focus, their bodies responding as if guided by a will beyond their own. Meals are functional, almost ritualistic, stripped of comfort, but designed to sustain efficiency. Sleep is timed, minimal, and punctuated by abrupt exercises that test awareness in its most fragile state. Aspirants are instructed to attune themselves to the faint hum of the palace itself, to discern patterns in shadows and light, to perceive threats that may not exist. Some speak in whispers of hearing the voice of the Emperor in these moments, though whether it is divine guidance or the mind straining under the weight of discipline is never clarified. These moments, like all others in the crucible, are not tests of belief, but tests of control over fear, over fatigue, over thought itself. Pain and fear are transformed into instruments. Bruises, burns, and the constant ache of muscles do not weaken, they teach. Exhaustion sharpens the mind, focus intensifies, and a rhythm emerges from the chaos, a cadence of thought, action, and observation. The aspirants begin to move with preternatural precision, anticipate without hesitation, and endure without complaint. They are learning the first lesson of the Custodes: survival alone is meaningless. True mastery is not overcoming others, but overcoming oneself, aligning body, mind, and spirit with an ideal that transcends individual ambition. Yet, even as they adapt, the crucible spares none from uncertainty. Aspirants are placed in isolation, sometimes for days, surrounded by nothing but echoes and the faint vibration of the palace. The mind, untethered from the routines of companions or instructors, begins to probe its own depths. Memories long buried, fears long ignored, desires and doubts that seemed irrelevant, they surface with a force that can overwhelm. Some break under the pressure, their minds fracturing in the silence. Others endure, learning to observe themselves as a detached instrument might, noting fear without surrendering to it, feeling pain without allowing it to dictate motion, and understanding that self is subordinate to purpose. By the end of the crucible's first full phase, a transformation is undeniable. The aspirants no longer resemble ordinary humans in motion or perception. Reflexes are sharpened to a near-mechanical level. Endurance exceeds expectation. The mind functions with a clarity born of relentless discipline. But the true measure of their readiness is not visible. It lies in the alignment of loyalty and comprehension, the quiet understanding that survival is not the prize, but the foundation for a life devoted entirely to service. The aspirants have been stripped, tested, and tempered, yet the final shaping, the moment where flesh, mind, and will fuse into the living instrument of the Emperor's design, is still to come. And so, standing at the edge of exhaustion and clarity, the surviving aspirants are led toward the next stage of their journey. Ahead lies a world where isolation becomes ritual, obedience becomes instinct, and the shadow of the Golden Throne grows ever nearer. They feel it in their bones, a quiet hum of destiny that resonates through the walls and floors of the palace, through the very marrow of their being. The crucible has begun to mold them, but it is only the first step in a path that demands not merely endurance, but transformation, for those who would stand as the Emperor's ultimate guardians. The palace is not merely a place, it is a living testament to eternity. For those who have survived the crucible, entering its inner halls is an awakening both exhilarating and terrifying. The air itself seems to hum with memory and purpose, golden light pooling across marble floors that have borne the weight of millennia. Aspirants feel immediately the immense gravity of their surroundings, a sensation that presses against the spine and settles into the chest, as though the walls themselves are aware of their presence. Every footstep is measured, every gesture considered, and even silence carries the weight of expectation. Here, in the shadow of the Golden Throne, they learn that the Custodes are not merely warriors. They are custodians of legacy, guardians of a civilization that has survived countless cataclysms, each heartbeat a testament to vigilance unbroken. The first lesson is subtle. Sound is a companion and a weapon. Conversations are muted, measured, and rare, for the walls of the inner palace betray excess as easily as error. The faintest whisper of doubt or hesitation can echo like a storm, observed by instructors and censors alike. The aspirants quickly learn to control every inflection, every glance, every movement, understanding that even in silence there is scrutiny. Relationships become precarious, intimacy dangerous, and laughter almost forbidden. Bonds form, but they are fleeting, fragile, and always overshadowed by the absolute priority of duty. To live here is to exist in constant awareness that freedom is a concept, not a reality. The mantle of silence is both shield and shackle, enveloping the Custodes in a cocoon of vigilance from which there is no reprieve. Time itself seems to behave differently within these inner halls. Minutes stretch into hours, hours into days, yet the rhythms of the palace remain absolute. Servitors glide along corridors, their metal limbs clattering softly against polished floors, while data slates record every heartbeat, every motion, every flicker of emotion. Aspirants move in synchrony with these rhythms, learning to anticipate the unspoken currents of the palace, to harmonize their presence with the vast machinery of duty. Sleep is a luxury measured in fragments, rest interrupted by drills or meditations that demand perfection, even in exhaustion. Here, the body is no longer a refuge but a vessel, and the mind a conduit for obedience and focus. The Custodes themselves appear as shadows of legend, statuesque figures in gold and crimson, their movements precise and deliberate. They are living instruments of discipline, embodiments of the Emperor's will, and to observe them is to witness the apex of human perfection. Aspirants study their every motion, noting how even the smallest gesture carries meaning. Every glance communicates authority. And yet, it is not fear that dominates, but awe. The aspirants understand that their path is not to surpass these warriors, but to join their ranks, to become conduits of the same discipline, the same unwavering loyalty, the same silent vigilance that has preserved Terra for centuries. Even in these hallowed spaces, challenges continue. The mantle of silence is not simply about restraint or observation. It is a test of comprehension, of integration. Aspirants are assigned tasks that require complete focus, often alone, under conditions designed to heighten awareness and sharpen instinct. They navigate corridors that twist unnaturally, respond to drills that are unpredictable in timing and intensity, and are constantly reminded that every choice, every motion, every thought is a reflection of their capacity to embody the Emperor's will. Failure is quietly noted, recorded, and reflected upon, and those who stumble may find themselves removed from the path entirely. And yet, amid the unyielding discipline and constant scrutiny, there are moments of revelation. From high galleries or hidden vantage points, the aspirants glimpse fragments of the palace in its totality. Spires that stretch into sunlight filtered through clouds of gold, the endless hum of manufactorums far below, and the quiet, almost imperceptible pulse of the Astronomicon that reaches out across the Imperium. These glimpses are rare, brief, and often overwhelming, a reminder of the stakes they now shoulder. Loyalty is not abstract. It is tangible, binding them to a duty that stretches beyond time and comprehension. They begin to perceive, in ways words cannot capture, that their lives are now instruments of vigilance, and that the mantle of silence is not punishment, but preparation for a purpose beyond mortal measure. Isolation within the inner palace is a constant companion. Aspirants move through corridors that seem to bend around them, windows revealing vistas of endless spires and distant manufactorums, yet offering no comfort. Even the light is deliberate, filtered and golden, highlighting both grandeur and the impossibility of the tasks ahead. They are taught to navigate this world alone, to carry themselves with unwavering purpose even when the halls seem to stretch infinitely, when every shadow appears to watch, and when the silence itself presses against the mind like a weight. Here, the faintest misstep, hesitation, doubt, or distraction can be fatal to progress, and the custodes are tireless in their scrutiny. The aspirants begin to realize that mastery is not simply about physical skill or mental endurance. It is about inhabiting the silence itself, becoming part of it, letting it shape thought and action until instinct and duty are indistinguishable. The rituals of observation are both subtle and unyielding. Aspirants are placed in situations that appear mundane, assembling complex mechanisms, performing seemingly endless inspections, or delivering reports to instructors whose faces remain impassive. Yet every moment is a test, every small motion an indicator of potential. The custodes can read hesitation in the tilt of a head, pride in the set of a jaw, fear in the tension of a hand. The aspirants slowly begin to understand that the true trial is not the visible obstacle, but the self, the emotions, impulses, and pride that must be tempered until the individual becomes a perfect instrument of obedience and vigilance. Many fail here, silently and without ceremony, removed from the path they believed they could follow. Physical exercises continue in parallel with these subtle trials, yet they are now framed not as training, but as meditation in motion. Movements are precise, calculated, and synchronized to the rhythms of the palace. Aspirants learn to anticipate and adapt, to merge thought and action so seamlessly that reaction seems instantaneous, almost preternatural. Fatigue no longer dulls reflexes, it sharpens awareness. Pain is neither feared nor endured. It is observed, catalogued, and used to guide movement. The body, mind, and spirit are honed into unity, a preliminary echo of the perfection demanded of a custodes. Each bruise, each blister, each sleepless hour becomes another thread in the tapestry of preparation, another measure of readiness for the responsibilities that await beyond the inner halls. Silence is both challenge and teacher. Aspirants are placed in chambers where every sound is amplified, the subtle hum of the palace's machinery, the soft scrape of a servitor's foot against polished floors, the distant vibration of manufactorums far below. In these moments, thought becomes action, and the mind learns to operate without distraction or hesitation. Some aspirants find clarity here, discovering a rhythm that connects them to the very essence of the palace itself, as though they are attuning to a hidden heartbeat older than humanity. Others are overwhelmed, their thoughts fragmenting under the pressure of endless observation and impossible expectation. Only those who can inhabit the silence without surrendering to fear or fatigue survive intact, their minds sharpened and aligned with purpose. Amid these trials, aspirants glimpse the custodes at their most elemental. They observe warriors moving with effortless precision, every gesture deliberate, every step weighted with centuries of practice. The aspirants understand that these figures are not merely human. They are instruments of discipline and devotion, embodiments of the emperor's will rendered in flesh and gold. To approach even the edge of such perfection is daunting, and yet the aspirants feel a spark of recognition, an understanding that their own journey is a mirror of this mastery, that the path they tread is a slow but deliberate transformation into something far greater than they were. By the end of this phase, a subtle shift occurs. Aspirants no longer stumble in silence. They move with awareness, their bodies aligned with purpose, their minds attuned to observation and instinct alike. Fear and doubt still linger, but they are contained, acknowledged, and transformed into tools of focus. The mantle of silence has begun to settle upon them, not as a burden, but as a framework through which they may begin to embody the custodes' ideals. They are still far from complete, but they have learned the first essential truth. Vigilance is not merely a duty. It is the essence of existence within these halls, and mastery of silence is the first step toward mastery of self. The final tests within the mantle of silence are not performed with weapons or drills, but with presence itself. Aspirants are tasked to patrol the halls alone, to move among shadows, to observe without being seen, to sense the rhythms of the palace as though it were an extension of their own body. Every flicker of light, every echo, every vibration is measured not only for reaction, but for comprehension. The custodes watch from hidden galleries, recording not the success of actions, but the alignment of intention, the harmony of thought and motion, the subtle integration of instinct with discipline. It is here that the aspirants begin to understand the profound difference between following orders and embodying a purpose so absolute that it no longer feels external. Time becomes a secondary concept. Days and nights blur. Sleep is measured, food is functional, and the mind becomes a tool of observation and anticipation. Aspirants learn to notice the slightest irregularity in the hum of machinery, the faintest variation in the light falling across a corridor, the imperceptible shift in air currents that signals movement. These moments, at first overwhelming, gradually weave into a rhythm. The body responds before thought, the mind interprets instinctively, and the soul, if it can still be called that, learns to attune itself to the unspoken will that courses through the palace. It is a subtle awakening, almost imperceptible, yet it signals the aspirant's progression from trainee to potential custodes. One who can move, observe, and act as an extension of something greater, something eternal. Isolation remains a relentless teacher. Aspirants spend hours, sometimes days, in chambers designed for contemplation and endurance, the silence pressing inward until thought itself is sharpened like a blade. Memories, regrets, and unspoken fears rise to the surface, each examined, each weighed against the demands of duty. It is here that the young custodians in training confront the fragile humanity that lingers within them, the impulses, desires, and pride that might compromise their purpose. Many falter, unable to reconcile the self with the emerging instrument of service. Those who endure begin to perceive a larger truth, that humanity is not erased but reshaped, refined, and tempered to serve a purpose beyond the comprehension of ordinary men. The aspirants also begin to sense the immensity of their eventual charge. From observation balconies and hidden corridors, they glimpse fragments of the palace's inner workings. The endless spires, the pulse of manufactorums, the faint glow of the astronomicon reaching across the stars. Each sight is both humbling and exhilarating, a reminder that their training is not for self, not for glory, but for the survival of an entire civilization. Loyalty, vigilance, and perfection are not ideals. They are imperatives, woven into every heartbeat, every breath, every movement. The mantle of silence is not merely a trial. It is a prelude to absolute responsibility, a condition of being that will define their existence if they are to serve the emperor as the custodes demand. By the conclusion of this stage, the aspirants have changed in ways subtle but profound. They move with awareness that borders on prescience, their thoughts aligned with purpose, their senses attuned to observation and nuance. Fear and hesitation are no longer dominant forces. They are tools noted, processed, and transformed into efficiency. The silence that once threatened to unmake them now serves as a framework within which they operate, a lattice of discipline and clarity. The mantle has not only settled upon them, it has begun to fuse with them, preparing them for the next stage of transformation, where the scale of duty expands beyond the corridors of the palace and into the very machinery of the Imperium. And so, as the aspirants stand alone in the quiet halls, attuned to the hum of the palace and the whisper of the Emperor's unseen gaze, they understand the first truth of the Custodes' existence. That mastery of silence is mastery of self, and that only by surrendering comfort, desire, and fear can one hope to bear the weight of eternity. Beyond these corridors lies a world of rumor, duty, and eternal vigilance, territory where mortal comprehension falters and faith becomes action. The next trials will stretch the boundaries of mind and body even further, preparing the aspirants for a truth that is as immense as the Golden Throne itself. Beyond the inner halls of the palace, the world shifts. The air grows heavier, tinged with incense and the faint electric tang of machinery that hums with impossible purpose. Aspirants who have endured the mantle of silence step into spaces where time itself seems to bend, corridors widening into chambers vast enough to hold entire battalions of statuesque custodes without strain. The Golden Throne, though distant, casts a presence that is palpable, a quiet gravity that presses against the chest, bends the spine, and leaves the mind simultaneously awed and alert. It is a presence that cannot be fully perceived, only felt, and even the most disciplined aspirants cannot help but recognize that they are nearing the heart of the Emperor's domain, where the line between myth and reality grows perilously thin. Here, the trials take on a new dimension. They are no longer measured solely by physical prowess or mental acuity, nor even by mastery of silence. The aspirants are tested in perception, in comprehension of scale and consequence, in the ability to navigate not only the corridors of stone and light, but the currents of responsibility that flow invisibly through the palace. Each decision, each motion, carries weight far beyond the immediate, touching systems, lives, and fates that extend across the Imperium. A misstep is no longer a failure of skill. It is a flaw in judgment, a crack in a chain whose links stretch across thousands of worlds. The aspirants feel it instinctively, the enormity of what they are being groomed to serve. The custodes who observe them in these halls are almost elemental in their presence. Clad in golden armor that reflects both light and legend, they move with a deliberate grace, each step measured, each gesture precise. Conversation is minimal, scrutiny is absolute. Aspirants are expected to anticipate their expectations, to sense their intentions, and to align every action with a standard older than most human memory. Even in the absence of direct instruction, the aspirants feel the pressure of their judgment, an invisible weight that guides, shapes, and warns. In these moments, the palace itself becomes a teacher, each echo, each vibration, each whisper of machinery a subtle lesson in vigilance and comprehension. Observation now extends into realms of rumor and perception. Aspirants are briefed on fragments of the Emperor's condition, the myths and liturgies surrounding the Golden Throne, the tenuous pulse of the Astronomicon, and the vast responsibilities carried by the Custodes. They are taught to navigate speculation with the same precision they have applied to movement and thought, understanding that the truth of what lies beyond the throne is as much a test of faith and perception as of intellect. They learn that some things are known only through ritual, prayer, or the accounts of centuries-old custodians. They are instructed not to question what they cannot confirm, but to comprehend how uncertainty itself can guide judgment, shaping choices that ripple through a galaxy of imperiled worlds. Physical trials continue, but they are now inseparable from comprehension and anticipation. The aspirants are guided through scenarios that combine tactical simulation with the unpredictability of instinct, observation, and environmental complexity. Drones, constructs, and even other aspirants form a web of stimuli designed to challenge coordination, perception, and decision-making under pressure. Every strike, every motion, every calculated pause is a test not of strength alone but of integration, body, mind, and will fuse to act as one. Fatigue is relentless, but it sharpens focus. Exhaustion is a teacher, but one that exacts the highest cost. Many stumble here, falter under the immensity of challenge, and vanish quietly, leaving only echoes to mark their presence. Amid these trials, aspirants gain glimpses of the Golden Throne itself, though always at a distance. Its vast, incomprehensible form dominates the horizon, a monument both mechanical and mystical, vibrating with currents of energy that few can interpret and none fully understand. To gaze upon it is to feel the weight of history and duty in a visceral way, as though the very structure reaches into the soul, assessing readiness, tempering ambition, and demanding humility. Aspirants sense instinctively that the throne is not merely a seat but a crucible, not simply a relic but an instrument that shapes the fate of humanity. It is a lesson they cannot ignore. The Custodes exist not for themselves but to serve, to protect, and to endure, guardians of something eternal and fragile at once.